ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Marketing Monday Wins and Fails here on December 6th, where we go over all the wins and the fails in the last week in marketing and business. Now, normally, all I want to talk about when it comes to bubbles are economic bubbles. They get bigger and bigger and then they pop and there's economic disaster. But this week, I want to give my first win to a different type of bubbles, green bubbles. And the ongoing green/blue bubble war that has been brewing what seems like our entire lives. Because there's been another salvo in this war that happened this week. Now, you guys know the story. If you use an Android phone in an iMessage conversation, it has green bubbles. Ugh. When I text someone for the first time and their bubble is green, it's nasty. And not only is it a weird, off-putting green color, but it's blurry. It has functionally less ability than the blue bubbles. There's been a lot of disastrous social pushback on Android users for this one reason. The guy at the AT&T store commented how I'm the one who ruins group chats with my green bubbles. I can't explain it, but green bubbles are such an ick. By the way, I want to say before we get into all this, I have an Android phone. just so you guys know that I'm taking the heat as well as I'm dishing it out, all right? I have an Android phone. And yet, I wouldn't be able to get a date. Thank God I'm married. Sorry, Android users, these iPhone snobs won't date you. Android users are more likely to be unlucky in love in general, a survey finds. This is a father on Reddit who said that his son is being bullied for owning an Android phone. His friends told him that his Galaxy S20 is lame. And I was like, wait, why don't you just explain to the kid that you can sideload apps from F-Droid by bypassing Google Play? But then he tried that, and it turns out that doesn't help a 12-year-old not get bullied. All of this is culminated in basically a victory royale, to use the Gen Z slang, for Apple's iPhone. And it's part of Apple's strategy. Again, these teenagers will become consumers. Teenagers are going to buy phones the entire rest of their life. They're going to buy phones in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. 87% of teens they surveyed had iPhones. The market share among teens is way, way higher. So if you're older than 24, the market share for iPhone is only around 40%. But it's up near 75% if you're between 18 and 24, which is where a lot of the people chat on. The social pressure of having a green bubble in a group chat and being made fun of or being excluded is so high, and everyone's pressure to, be the best possible version of themselves for dating and friendships, that they don't want an Android. Google has noticed this and has started a campaign to try and pressure Apple into finally updating the way they handle Android texts. They made this video. So anyway, the pressure has been from Google to finally get Apple to update the old SMS protocol it uses for Android chats so that they can have rich media text. And they've been putting pressure on them with the advertisements, and it hasn't really been effective, and Apple's been sort of ignoring them. But recently, seemingly out of the blue, as in a few days ago, Tim Cook shows up and says, you know what? Okay, we're going to offer RCS support. And everyone's kind of really surprised. Wait, what the hell? And Andrew Clare, a notable tech reviewer / Android user, says, goodbye green bubbles, it's over. And then Apple said, well, now wait a minute. We will offer RCS support, but Android users will still have green bubbles. The media will work fine. The images won't break the group chats, but we still want to mark you as an Android user. And so, obviously, Android users are a little frustrated now. They could just change the color on Apple's side, right? Like, someone should solve this problem. And so, the market stepped in to try and do that, introducing a new app called Nothing Chat. This is how it works, okay? You have an Android phone, you send your message, it logs into basically a Mac Mini that Nothing Chat bought, and then sends the message from there. So now it's a Mac message. And it turns out there are some possible privacy concerns. So they marketed this as extremely private, end-to-end encryption. We never store user messages. And it turns out that nothing about that is true. It turns out whenever someone even took a cursory look into it, it's extremely insecure, and they were just storing everyone's messages and credentials in plain text that you could access over the internet. People were able to use Nothing Chat to find other people's data and information. It was extremely, extremely insecure. And so immediately, despite solving a problem, it was pulled from Google Play, like instantly. And that was going to be the end of that. I was going to end this segment by saying, and the war rages on, but it looks like other than some minor upgrades, it's still the green versus blue war. But then something crazy happened. Apparently, a high schooler, a solo dev high schooler, found a way to basically spoof an Apple ID on Android phones. And then a company called Beeper Mini bought that technology, turned it into an app, and now they have native iMessage support on Android. Like right now, you can download this Beeper Mini and you have native Blue Bubble iMessage support encrypted. I mean, it's as if you have an iPhone. This is how it works. From, I believe this is a guy named Snazzy Tech. Excellent video. Check him out. Great tech reviewer.
Beeper would 1. Ask you for your Apple ID. 2. Create a new macOS virtual machine on a real Apple computer in a data center somewhere. 3. Log into that macOS instance using the Apple ID that you gave them. And then 4. Relay those messages through that Mac to your Android phone to pretend as though you were an iPhone. Now, you might be thinking, well, couldn't Apple just ban this specific serial number and UUID server side and break PyPush in like 2 minutes?
That's the first thing I'm thinking. Why wouldn't Apple just immediately ban it? But apparently...
But they aren't likely to, because there are a lot of legitimate reasons for many Apple IDs to use the same hardware keys. From enterprise deployments to white hat bounty programs, Apple uses a bunch of unknown variables themselves, weighted differently, to determine the legitimacy of you as a user.
It goes on for a while. It basically explains why if Apple were to patch this out, it would cause them a bunch of headaches with legitimate users. At least for now, this thing is likely to remain up. Psych! Yeah, it turns out Apple wasn't having any of that. Within a few days of that recording, the EU announced they were not going to be investigating iMessage for antitrust, which gave Apple the green light to immediately shut that shit down. They claimed it was protecting their users, for security reasons. They had everything to be tightly controlled. They got some pushback from Senator Warren saying, people like this, why are you shutting it down? But they did come back with a new downgraded version where if you already have an Apple ID email address, you can still log in and get access to Blue Bubbles from iPhone. They'll probably find a way to shut this down too, because it seems very clear from everything that Tim Cook has said or done, they really want to hold on to iMessage being a iPhone only thing. The battle may continue, but for right now, Apple has struck back, and I don't think that there will be any Blue Bubbles on Android. When a person asked Tim Cook on stage what he should do about messaging his mother who has an Android phone because they were having issues with iMessage, Tim Cook said this.
I can't send my mom certain videos, or she can't send me certain videos. And so we leave
Buy your mom an iPhone.
That's what Apple's going for right now, and it's pretty obvious. We'll see if anyone steps in, but for now, you got to buy an iPhone if you want that Blue Bubble. It seems like, all is well. But I doubt that Tim Cook is so happy, because a while back, there was some leaked emails. They showed Apple is fully aware that they could at any moment make it easy for Android users to have the same functionality and same message color as Apple. And they chose not to because it would stop parents with family plans from getting their kids Androids that are cheaper. Basically, they figured out that parents buy their kids more expensive iPhones because the kid demands it because of the chat message. But otherwise, they would get their kids cheaper Androids. So they're very aware of the problem and they don't want to let this change. Based on what I read here, similarly, this happened with iTunes back in the day, and developers tried to create these workarounds where you could use iTunes support on non-Apple devices or have things like that. And Apple every time would find a way to break things so that you couldn't work anymore. It was a constant war to break this kind of thing so that you could not get around it. Despite the fact this is working perfectly right now, we're going to see some sort of security patch update. They're going to find a way. There's too much at stake for Apple to allow this to go through. So it seems extremely likely that old Tim Cook is going to end this. But for now, you can have your Blue Bubbles on Android and we can have peace and harmony, okay? Now, there is one thing that I want to say. Normally, Apple would crash down on this like a fucking iron fist. I think they would have done it within 24 hours normally. But right now, Apple is in the midst of an antitrust trial in the EU, and they are very worried about doing anything anti-competitive. In fact, they have been saying in this trial that the reason they don't make these kind of phone updates is because there's technical challenges. So when someone proves that there is no technical challenges and they can be done, it sends a bad message. So Apple is treading very carefully around this. They do not want to crush this like a bug too easily. easily. Speaking of countries' laws and tech companies, the fail is to everybody who streams on Twitch in Korea. Because as of 2 days ago, Twitch is shut down its stream platform in South Korea. Twitch no longer exists in South Korea. You can no longer stream there and make money. This is a Korean Twitch streamer talking about what this means for her.
It just feels like I lost my job. My career, everything what I made it, like partner streamer, just everything will be gone.
Just to pause. Now, there is competing platforms in South Korea. The number one now being Africa TV, whose stock price jumped 30% on this news. She can go stream there, but platforms like that have no outside Korea viewership. So if you're a streamer in Korea who has some English viewers or some non-Korean viewers, they're completely lost to you with the end of this service. But the reasoning behind it is, in fact, in my opinion, not really Twitch's fault. If you want to know the backstory, it turns out there is a pretty strong telecommunications cartel in South Korea. You know how every couple of years we'll have a net neutrality fight? What that basically means is that the carriers can't charge extra based on the content that's on there. They can't like charge different content providers different amounts. All traffic is treated the same. Well, in Korea, that no longer exists. They have abandoned net neutrality. They have what's called pay your fair share laws or whatever. They're the only country in the world. I think Brazil's about to get them, but Korea's the only one that has it. And what that ends up meaning is that largely non-Korean content providers are charged significantly extra fees. People like Netflix, who just had a 3-year legal dispute because Squid Game had so much traffic, they were charged an incredible amount of money by SK Telecom Broadband. Telecoms have tried this in other countries. So far, it has not caught on. Europe was able to shut it down. America was able to shoot it down, but Korea, it has caught on. And when Dan Clancy spoke about this, he basically said, hey, our network fees in Korea are 10 times more expensive than other countries. And I have spoken to Twitch employees who worked in Twitch Korea, and they've confirmed this to me. Like, this is a real thing. Twitch already is barely break even, if not money losing in most regions. In Korea, it's a significant loss, so they had to shut it down. And in fact, I think Twitch handled it pretty well. So what Twitch did is they gave 3 months heads up. They've allowed, obviously, streaming on other platforms in the meantime, and they've encouraged or found ways to keep people off to other platforms in the meantime. So, I mean, it's not the perfect thing they could do, but it's as helpful as I can imagine for a business that is already losing money in a region. In the end, I think it's kind of a major L to Korea. I wonder if this will lead to any change. Speaking of someone else that got money for something, Snoop Dogg. Everyone's already seen this, but I thought it was really funny and I wanted to give it a win. It's an honest to God mini Marketing Monday win. Snoop Dogg tweeted, "I'm giving up smoke. After much consideration and conversation with my family, I've decided to give up smoke." So he tweeted this, everyone lost their mind, and then the next day he tweeted the following.
I have an announcement. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. I'm going smokeless. Solo stove fix fire. They took out the smoke.
What I like about this is that this part right here, they didn't include it on the first tweet, even though legally they're required to. They took the hashtag ad out of the first tweet to create the buzz. And that, I think, is fucking ballsy. There's so much pressure from the legal department or whatever, even though it'll be way funnier and get the actual buzz and interest, people want to put in the thing and cover their ass. And they didn't do it. They put it again on the last one, and they could probably argue it, it's probably fine. But I think that, to me, was really impressive because it made the whole thing a viral buzz, which is hard to do for a fucking smokeless stove social media campaign. I'm gonna be honest with you. And I think they did a great job. So shout out to them. I give them a dub. Speaking of shopping, if you're not buying a Solo stove, maybe you're buying something else for Black Friday. Let's compare how America treated Black Friday back when I was growing up to right now.
Watch as merchandise goes flying through the crowds at this Walmart in Virginia and this one in South Carolina. Bullets flew outside this Kohl's in Illinois. Multiple injuries reported after police chased an alleged shoplifter into the parking lot.
Can y'all believe this is a Walmart on Black Friday? Back in my day, fights were breaking out over this stuff, and now there's just no one.
What happened? We used to be a consumerist country. Black Friday isn't what it used to be, is the headline. What is the difference? Well, it turns out the main culprit is the internet. Turns out sales of Black Friday were a slight % up this year, but all of the traffic was online. I've been making the case the economy's in a pretty rough spot right now. I think people are feeling the sting of inflation. And so I did a little bit of a deeper dive. And it turns out that while we did barely manage to squeak out higher numbers this year, a couple things are unique about this year. Number one, credit card defaults have hit a peak. But the main reason people were spending higher this time around, this holiday spending spree is fueled by buy now, pay later shoppers. Our good old friends Klarna and Afterpay are back, baby, and they're up a staggering 40% over last year. And what's cool about it, and what's an extra big win, is people aren't just using it for holiday shopping, they're using it for everyday expenses, like gas and groceries. Yes, dude. It's almost like we found a way cooler thing to do than stampeding over a mall. All of this would be a problem for the future. I honestly, it's like, you get a debt, you pay it back later. But the thing is, 25% of Americans are still paying holiday debt from last year. So I think we're in a part where this is all starting to catch up to us, especially as you start to see default rates begin to rise. If we're in a situation where people are last chancing this fucking crazy spending spree on debt, and they already have leftover debt, and they're coming to a point where they're not able to pay that debt, I think we're getting to a part where this could lead to some real problems. And if we don't have money to spend, that's going to be a real problem for my next win, Ubisoft, because they really want us to spend. Do you guys remember this scene from the movie Ready Player One?
But once we launch this little baby, they're gonna flip. We estimate we can sell up to 80% of an individual's visual field before inducing seizures.
80% of a user's visual field before inducing seizures. I present to you the real life example. Having pop-in ads during gameplay that rolled out recently, and then they got a bunch of backlash, and they said it was, of course, a technical error. You could maybe believe that, but then the community notes tell the truth that it's been in the game for 4 years. And so we'll see what happens with Ubisoft and their continued attempt to monetize our visual space. All of this is only interesting insofar as it's in the boring West, okay? To really get to what's going on in the world right now, we need to go to the East with something I like to call Wazzup Beijin.
Wazzup Beijin.
Welcome to Wazzup Beijing, a coverage of what's going on in business in China. Turns out they're having their own default problems. Chinese borrowers are defaulting in record numbers as their economic crisis deepens. 8 million people have become blacklisted by authorities after they missed their own payments on mortgages and business loans. And in China, consequences for missing payments are severe. It is much more difficult to just declare bankruptcy and move on. In fact, you are blacklisted from a whole suite of services, certain trains, certain activities, certain things you can do, and that make it more and more difficult to be able to pay back your original loan. But there is one way maybe you could do it. Gamba, baby! Now, gambling is 100% illegal, but it turns out recently there was sort of a way to get around that on their most popular streaming service. There was this way that you could basically use subscribers as a lottery. So I might tell you, hey, subscribe to me right now, and one of you will win $10,000. Try it right now. No, literally, try it right now. You could win. So I could basically turn my subscriber system into an online lottery or gambling. It's real. And it turns out to crack down on this, they just arrested the CEO. The problem I have with it is, again, China, it's this balancing act where in America, we don't punish CEOs at all. And in China, the way they do it is they made him disappear for a few weeks. No one knew where the hell he was. No one had any answers. And they put out this mysterious message that a man with the last name Chen was arrested on suspicion of opening a casino. They said nothing else. But there's got to be a middle ground. Stevik, our Marketing Monday researcher, noticed the big three in China are prostitution, gambling, and drugs, and they're untouchable. Any celebrity or public figure that's caught doing anything related to those is basically blacklisted immediately with zero tolerance. He is related to gambling, so he's probably done. There is some sort of punishment, and I guess it's been immediately cracked down upon on the website, so they have it gone. This is a funny quote from one of the esports teams. Basically, all of Doyu's esports teams have already lost and came home back to China already, but the boss won't be going home anytime soon. Speaking of China and their economic issues, you may have recalled in a previous Marketing Monday, we talked about how Xi Jinping and Biden are buddy-buddy again. China announced they have no intention to challenge or unseat the US. They've been really changing their rhetoric dramatically. They've been radically downplaying their previous confrontational dialogue, and now they've been super friendly, super buddy-buddy. A lot of it seems to be related to this, which is basically that China needs some foreign direct investment. Even tourism in China is down, let alone business investment. And so China has realized that Xi Jinping's quote, scaring the hose strategy has not been working. And so they did try something which is pretty cool, which is that they're going to offer visa-free entry for all citizens of France, Germany, and Italy, which basically means that you can travel there without a lot of hassle, which is actually really cool. And some countries like Malaysia are offering policy back to create open, free networks of travel between the two countries, which again could help. Like China's sort of been, due to the economic crisis happening around real estate, been somewhat humbled in its constant like sword rattling and rhetoric, and is trying to like, hey, okay guys, chill out, come back. The main story actually in Wazzup Beijin this week has nothing to do with exactly China itself, but rather I want to talk about the Taiwanese elections, which are about to happen. They're very, very important coming up. I'll give you a crash course. Now, if you guys don't know, I'll give you the very brief history. This was all used to be one country. Communist Party around the 50s basically won the Civil War battle here. Remainder of the old Chinese government is on Taiwan. The war never even officially ended between these two parties. They claimed all of Taiwan claimed all of China, China claimed all of China. Eventually, Taiwan gave up on that and said they just want to be on their own. In the 70s, China started shelling Taiwan and attempted to take it over. And basically, the United States stepped in and little broed them. So the United States stopped it from happening. And then in the interim period, Taiwan ended up becoming a pretty well-established democracy on its own and created all of the great chip fabs of the world. They create most of like the world's microchips. But the conflict has never really been resolved. China still claims this is part of China, and Taiwan still claims they're independent. And so the reason this matters, the reason this separation of the two matters, the upcoming elections, the different parties have different stances on where they land with regards to China. I'm going to refer to these as the Blue Party, the Green Party, and the White Party. The Green Party is the current party that's in power, and they are the most, we could say, quote, anti-China. We don't want to work with them. We don't want to be next to them. The Blue Party is probably the opposite. They are the most like, hey, we should just be friendly with them. And then the White Party is somewhat in the middle. Now, there was this guy, as we mentioned before, his name is Terry Gao. He is the creator of Foxconn. He was running for president, but China was so worried that he would split the vote and make the Blue or the White Party lose. So they pressured him by running raids on all the Foxconn factories. So he just dropped out. And so it's back to these two. Now, currently the Green Party's in the lead, and that's how it was going to be until the Blue and White parties realized that because they were losing, they should form a coalition. And so they did. The Blue-White Alliance rose to 49% of the vote and seemed very likely to win. But then there was very recently a last-second falling out. They couldn't decide which one of them would be the president and which one would be the vice president. And so now it's seeming like, again, the Green Party, the most anti-China Taiwanese party, is yet again in the lead. And again, China is looming in the background of this whole thing, trying to influence it however they can to get a more pro-China candidate into office. The elections happen in January. They're coming up, and they're going to be extremely important with how China handles Taiwan going forward. What are the likelihood of conflict there? What it means? All of that's extremely important. It's all going to happen in January coming up right now. And as we speak, there is all sorts of chaos happening. Taiwan has very lively and interesting elections. So, and we'll give you updates in future Marketing Mondays. But that is the end of today's Marketing Monday. Thanks for watching, and see you next week, same time, Monday.
Check it.